What's up, guys? It's Scott here. Welcome to another video on the Carnivore Cast YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing well. I want to start by saying thank you all so much for the support to date. People have been commenting, liking, sharing, and subscribing to the YouTube channel, which I really appreciate. The support I've received and the overwhelming positive feedback has been fantastic. It really makes me feel good and encourages me to keep making more content like this. I am overwhelmed by the positivity, and it just reinforces my belief that this community of folks who want to change their health, take their health into their own hands, improve themselves through a meat-based diet, through a carnivore diet, and learn more, are just a group of fantastic, supportive, friendly people. So that's really nice, and I want to thank you for that. And then today's video is going to be about how much to eat on a carnivore diet, a very common question I receive, and something that can be confusing for a lot of people, and how many meals to eat, how many times to eat during the day. A lot of people just say, eat meat until you're full, and in some ways it is that simple, but in some ways it's not. It can be a lot more complicated than that, and we all know that just eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full is never really the full story. So before I start, if you like this type of content, please drop me a like, subscribe if you're new, feel free to share it with a friend, and comment down below how much you eat on a carnivore diet. It would be interesting to see people share how many pounds of meat they eat or how many times they eat, how they think about quantities. So diving right into it. My number one piece of advice on how much to eat on a carnivore diet is eat until you're full. So don't walk away from meals still hungry or wondering if you could eat more, especially when you're getting adapted. You want to make each meal count. Ideally, we want to get to a point where we avoid snacking and we're just having large meals. Now, I know at first you may get those hunger pangs and those snacks between meals. That's okay. You should accept that. Don't feel bad if you need to go to the cabinet and have a beef stick or some pork rinds, or if you need to go to the fridge and have some, ideally, even better than those snacks is just some more steak, some more meat. It's best to fill up on the good stuff and have more pre-cooked. That's really the best way to go. But eventually you'll get to a point naturally with this diet where you find you fall into a natural meal pattern, a natural number of meals per day, times to eat, and amount to eat. So don't force strict rules on yourself when you get started. Just eat until you're very full each time you get hungry. And that might be twice a day when you start. It might be 8 times a day. Number 2 is buy and cook more food than you think you need. So what you don't want to do is go to a place or only have enough food defrosted, or only portion enough food for yourself, so that you're mostly full. And then it's 2 hours after your meal and you're starving and you feel like you need a snack and you give in to cravings and you have something off plan or something you wish you hadn't. So always have a little bit extra. I know people are budget conscious and they don't want to throw away food, but you can always freeze food that you don't use, that you cook. Even steaks, once you cook them, you can freeze them. I know it's not the most appealing thing. It's not ideal, but it's better to have more food on hand, much better, especially when you get started. And over time, you'll get into a rhythm where you know exactly how much food you need and you can be more precise. But when you get started, you really want to over portion and just accept that you're always going to cook an extra, call it 25%, maybe even 50% for each meal than you think you need. And that way, you cook 1.5 pounds, you think you're only going to eat 1 pound, but you're a little bit peckish after the meal. You can have an extra 1/4 pound or 1/2 pound, no problems. So always buy and cook more food than you think you need. Next, I'm going to go over rough amounts. Now, everyone will land somewhere different depending on where you're coming from. If you're a smaller person, a bigger person, obviously, you might need different amounts of food, but also, even independent of your size, you could be a huge person, but you could be really malnourished and depleted of nutrients, in which case you're going to need more food when you start. You could be really active. Activity levels affect how much food we need. If you're a CrossFit athlete exercising 10 times a week, you're going to need more than someone who's sedentary and mostly sitting in a chair all day. And then, also body composition affects how much you eat, muscle versus fat. So just giving rough guidelines for people who are like, okay, great, I get it, but tell me how much to eat. Most people start with 1.5 to 2 pounds per day of meat for a woman. I'd say that's a good starting place. But again, some people will eat 4 pounds a day. Kelly Hogan, when she started, she was eating 4 pounds of meat plus every single day, really fatty meat. and she's relatively small. She's like in the low 100s. So don't limit yourself based on these guidelines. Eat as much as you need, but just to know so you don't undershoot it. These are some rough starting places. And then for a man, 2.5 to 3.5 pounds is a good rough range. Again, could be a lot more. And thankfully, it corrects for itself day to day and week to week. You might be hungrier some days than others. You might eat a lot more one day, and then the next day you're like, I'm pretty stuffed. I really don't need that much food. Now, what you shouldn't do is say, I ate a ton yesterday. I'm going to eat less today to make up for it. That's a bad pattern of behavior to get into, and I really discourage that. What you want to do is eat as much as you think you need, and don't force more food than you think you need. If you ate 3 pounds yesterday, and you're really only hungry for 2 today, truly, then only eat 2. But if you ate 2 yesterday and you're like, that wasn't enough, I'm starving, then go ahead and eat 3 today. And it'll also vary depending on if you're eating fattier or leaner meats. I personally can eat like 5 pounds of just slightly leaner steaks, like chuck or some of the leaner cuts. Whereas, if I'm eating all fatty ribeyes, it might be closer to 2.5 pounds. So that can really vary. And then one other thing to think about with these guidelines, I always like to think of when you're translating eggs to pounds of meat, because you might say, I ate 2 pounds of meat, but I ate 12 eggs. I think of a dozen eggs as roughly a pound of meat. You might say 10 eggs, but just a rough general guideline. So if you're saying, hey, I'm eating 2 pounds plus 6 eggs, that's roughly 2.5 pounds worth of meat. That's how I think about it. And then lastly, last tip on how much to eat and how many meals is try to, over time especially, eat earlier in the day. Bias more of your food earlier. This will really help with waking your body up, giving you energy for the day, helping your circadian rhythm. When we first wake up, our cortisol levels are really high to wake us up, to get us out of bed. And by eating, you're returning to a rest and digest state. And you're also giving your body the ability to be full. Your blood sugar regulation is the best in the morning. And if you have a big meal, I know a lot of people aren't hungry when they first wake up, but you'll get used to it. When you have a big meal, when you start your day, studies show you regulate your appetite better throughout the day, and you sleep much, much better. Having a huge meal right before bed, you might feel like, oh, I'm so full, I can just have a nice lie down and sleep like a baby, but it's actually disturbing your sleep. It's impairing your deep sleep, whether you realize it or not, if you're digesting food while you sleep. And meat especially digests very slowly, which is good, but not good if you're trying to sleep. So I hope that was helpful. Just to recap, guys, eat until you're very full. Buy and cook more food than you think you need. Some rough amounts are 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of meat for a woman, 2.5 to 3.5 pounds for a man. Again, very rough guidelines, just a starting point. And then lastly, I advise you to eat earlier in the day if you can. So if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, share. I really, really appreciate it. Helps me, helps get the word out to more people, helps more people find valuable information, hopefully. And let me know in the comments section how much you eat on a carnivore diet, what type of content you'd like to see. And until next time, keep it carnivore.